Cool, so thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to solve the AAP01 hammer problem. Now, this is probably going to be a completely unedited video, as long as everything goes completely smooth. I just want to do this really quick to show you how to upgrade the AAP01 hammer and all of the other parts inside of the hammer housing. The only thing that I do want to say is this isn't my first time. I actually upgraded this hammer in the past with the upgraded hammer parts, and for some reason, I have had so many issues, and I don't know why. Such as random bursts of burst fire, random gassing out. I have changed, upgraded, and adjusted every single part inside of the AAP01, whether bringing it back to stock or adding upgrades, and the only problem that still seems to stand that I haven't tried to change yet is the cow hammer system. I don't know what part it is. I'm no professional, so I'm not going to try and figure that out 100%. So instead, what I decided to do, and this is nothing against cow, a lot of their parts work great. A lot of people have had great success. Maybe mine was just milled weird or something. It happens. So I decided to pick up the TTI airsoft hammer set. I think this was about $55, 65 with shipping. And it comes in this nice little package. In this tiny little box too, which is awesome. You could probably use this for a ton of different parts, whether it be store pins or store the other hammer parts and stuff like that, so that's great. And you'll see inside, it comes with your hammer. Looks nice. It's definitely machined, you can see the marking on it. You have the roller, your sear. That's your auto sear. This is, I'm going to totally butcher what some of these parts are. I'm not going to try, but it comes with all of the necessary parts to upgrade your AAP01's hammer. So I'm going to keep these in the box for now, just so we don't mistake them for the cow parts, because they are all very similar. I guess first what to do other than start with disassembly. So rack the charging handle, press the button, your hammer should be dropped down. Chances are you won't have to do this part, but my trigger is super far back, so I'm gonna have to release it so we can get the hammer housing out. I'm gonna grab a small Allen key. I always forget which one it is that fits. I'm gonna have to drop the hammer, that's fine, no big deal. Is it this guy? I think it's this guy. Now we just go ahead and loosen that screw, which will allow, I'm sorry, my mistake, tighten that screw, which will allow the trigger to fall further forward, therefore allowing us to get the trigger bar a little further out of the way. Yeah, you see how much further forward that goes now? All right, we're just gonna take this guy, and you need to remove the 2 pins on the back. Just be careful. You want to take a look at the pins and which way they insert into, and you want to push them out the opposite way. Now remember which direction you do this in. See how it's got those serrations on both sides? That's the way they have to come out. Now remember, you went right to left to push them in again, so that's the way that they're going to have to go in. And I'm just going to store them on the side in that orientation, so I remember. And then we're going to pull the trigger back, and we're going to release the housing. Just keep in mind this piece is only held in by the friction between the wall of the replica and the hammer housing. There is a spring, so you don't want to lose that. And it may take a little bit of wiggling to get this guy out. You can do this with taking out the trigger bar. I've found it completely unnecessary, so after just a little wiggling, it comes on out. Bingo. Awesome. You just don't want to force it. Don't force anything. So we'll set this aside. Now here's your hammer housing. It does have a couple pins, one here, and one under this guy. Like I said, this is spring-loaded. You'll see that I have upgraded pins. I have upgraded rollers. I have upgraded the cow hammer, sear, and all those other fun little gadgets inside of the standard housing. I've tried some upgraded housings, but they weren't great. I didn't really like them. They put a lot of weird pressure onto the pistol grip, and that caused a lot of challenges. So all we're going to do now is first take this piece off. I'm going to store all of the cow parts in this little tray. So you're going to press this guy down, pull it out, and then make sure you don't lose that spring. This spring is going to be essential for later. This TTI upgrade kit does not come with any of the necessary springs, so make sure you save all of your springs. If you lose these, which it's very easy to, you're screwed. Next, we're going to pull the hammer housing back. And very, very carefully, we're going to release the auto sear. Now, the way that we want to do this, you'll notice this pin is much larger on this side than on this side. So it has to push out again from right to left. We're going to push this direction. And that's the only thing holding this auto sear in. And this guy is under spring tension. I don't know if you can see that. There is a spring under there. You really don't want to lose that spring. I've lost one before, and it's impossible to find. The other thing we want to do when we pull it out is check the orientation that the spring is in, because we have to replicate that later. So we're going to press down on the auto sear, up at the front. We're going to push that pin out. It should fall out super easily. And then we're going to ever so slowly release the auto sear. And hopefully the spring stays in the orientation we need it in, where you could see, let me see if I can get that on camera. So it wraps up in coils in this direction. The protruding part here is on the top. I'll try and zoom this in, see if that helps. All right. So the protruding part is on the top, and the one that's got the bend in it is on the bottom. We're going to try and keep that on the side in an area where we won't disturb it, so we can remember later. You don't have to. You could always just take a picture. I'll remember it because I've done this in the past. All right, now what we're going to do, maybe we'll keep this zoomed in orientation. There's a spring here that clips into the back of this little piece that holds the hammer and this bar together. What we're going to want to do is unrelease that spring. The best way to do this is to apply tension to the hammer and then pull this guy outwards. And that'll release. Next, what we're going to do is pull this pin out from the bottom, and same thing, we're going to push it out that direction. Boom. Okay, we'll save this guy as well. Might even throw those in the tray just so they're not rolling around. And then your spring will come out, and we'll store that for later. Okay, so next what we're going to do is get this whole hammer housing out. The hammer is also loaded under spring tension. You'll notice that spring right here. That's the flat side of the spring, and it's furthest to the left. So we're going to keep that in mind when we take this apart so we can put it back together that way also. This takes a little bit of fucking about. This is the hardest piece to get back in the right way. So just keep that in mind. It's a little harder to explain when we take it apart. We are just going to reverse engineer the entire thing. But for now, that is all of your parts out. And your hammer housing. Okay, we're going to start reverse engineering this entire piece. So all we're going to do is take our hammer, And we're trying to install this guy in the same orientation that it was in inside of the hammer. Now, let me just make sure that I remember how these things work. So to start off, we're going to grab that spring. And it has to be installed like that. So you have the larger of the two ends on the bottom, and that portion of the spring where it protrudes is at the top. Keep that in mind. We're going to grab our little roller and throw that right at the top. Careful, that's only held in by friction later on. And we're going to place this while holding everything together inside of the hammer housing like this. Because you need this little knob on the spring to sit right here on this flat ridge. I can show you that on camera as best I can. It is not easy to do. You see how that inserts there? And that's the orientation you want to get it in. Now from here, the goal is to try and get a pin in there. Now obviously the pin's not going to fit, sadly, because it's just way too pushed over to the side. And there's really nowhere for you to get in there and try and maneuver it, like finger-wise, to try and push this hammer forward. So you could try a couple things. You could try and apply pressure here and get a pin in. See how I'm doing that? The only downside is it's extremely hard to then get another hand to push that in. But after a few tries and some practice, I'm going to probably do this off camera because I'm going to use my knee. But you'll notice the pin is inside of the hammer. It's only in far enough to make sure I'm holding the hammer in place. You don't want that guy in too far. I'll explain why in just a second. So this is the step we're up to. The hammer is in place. Next, what we're going to do is we have to get not the cow-cow pieces. Not the cow-cow pieces. We've got to get our other pieces. And we've got to put this little rod here. I think it's like the mag release piece. And we have to get it inside of this hole. So my best recommendation for you is to just push it in like this. Give it some force. It'll move the spring out of the way. And it should fall right into place. See that? Got that guy falling in the hole. Super simple, super easy. Now what you want to do is push your pin the rest of the way through. And you should have some holding the pin in place so you don't lose it. Spring tension of the hammer. And that guy should be free. And that's how you know you're in the right spot. Make sure it goes through the top hole and that bottom hole is still open. Next, what we're going to do is get those bottom pieces in place. So you're going to grab a hold of this guy. This guy. And the pin that has no edges. What we're going to do is drop this piece in this orientation with the little prong on the left facing outwards into the right side of the hammer, like so. You want to take this spring, see how it's got the bent edge and the flat edge on the right, and it's got to go in front of that little prong right there. So it's going to lay like that. See how it's in the front of that prong? Now you want to grab your pin, and you got to get it to go through the spring, through the bottom of that metal piece, that metal bar, and out the other side. Now without spring tension, this guy will just fall out, so keep both fingers on the holes. And I suggest get yourself some sort of a pair of tweezers and pull this pin into that hole that I was talking about right up here. it's got to go connect into there. It's not the easiest. My other recommendation to do this is to pull the hammer back at the same time. You see how it kind of protrudes outwards? Maybe we don't even need tweezers. Look at that. Cool. So you see how it's inside that hole now back here? Now you should notice that you have tension on the hammer still, and this guy should move with the hammer. And there's no wiggling in and out, just up and down, with a little bit of spring tension to it. Now the last part, the hardest part in my opinion, because it's the easiest spring to lose, is going to be the auto sear. Now remember, like I said with the other auto sear, we're going to take the auto sear from the TTI kit in this orientation with that little notch here. And we're going to take the spring from the cow one, and it needs to sit in this orientation where you got the bent arm or the bent prong downwards, and that's at the top of the coil, and then the more straight style arm is at the bottom of the coil pointing upwards, and it's going to sit inside the track. No way. No way. Oh no. Oh no, wait, hold on. I found it. We're good. We're good. Okay, no more tweezer. I don't trust you, tweezers. Okay, like I said, don't lose it. It's a bad day when you lose that piece. Okay. Now, here's what we need to do. I like to hold it like this between my pointer and my middle finger with that prong extruding outwards and the notch up at the top. You see that little bump at the top of the auto sear? The notch is going to go up in the front of the hammer facing forwards, the same direction as that little bar is. And it needs to sit on that ridge that goes across right there. If you can get that spring to sit on the ridge like that, see how it's just in there? Should be some spring tension. Then you're good to go. You're just going to take your pin, throw it in from the side on the left that has that small indentation because it needs to sit completely flush. And I would give something to just push it the rest of the way in and release. And now your auto sear should have some spring tension to it. See that? Awesome. Now I just want to take a quick look before we install the next piece. See if there's any difference in the auto sear, because the auto sear was the spot that I was having some problems originally. So first of all, first things foremost, that bump is much more aggressive on the TTI. And it looks like it's a little bit wider, actually, like thicker. Maybe that has something to do with the problem that I was having. Yeah, I don't know. This might not be the cow hammer. This might be an aftermarket hammer. I had bought a cow hammer. I still have that as well. I don't use that one. But I tried to change out the hammer system once before. But obviously, don't go cheap. Go with the recommended brands. And I've heard good things about TTI. I'm going to take this spring now and drop that guy in place. And I'm going to take that bar and that prong. That extended prong needs to face down in that notch, just a little lower than the spring. And the part that looks like a dinosaur needs to face forward. So we're going to keep our finger over the spring. I've lost these two. And apply tension just like that. See that? And you should be able to push it down. Just be careful because, again, like I said, it's very easy to lose. And that is our TTI hammer installation. Now I'm just going to pull us back out to the 1X. And we're going to, ever so carefully, try and get this guy back where it needs to go. Again, we're just kind of reverse engineering it. To make sure that that bar, the trigger bar, sits under that extrusion of the hammer casing, or the hammer housing. And again, try not to force anything. It all should fit nice and snug. It'll drop into place just like so. Press in your upper release until the hammer's flush. and you're good to go. Now we're going to take our pins. Again, remember we went out from the right side, so we're going in from the right side now. Short guy on the bottom. Long boy on the top. Yep, long boy on the top. Just want to make sure that was the right orientation. And we'll press these guys in. They shouldn't take a lot of force. Just a little. They also get looser the more often you do this. Awesome. Okay. Make sure everything works now. Hammer locks. Click. Cool. Auto sear catches. Now before I adjust my trigger again, a good way to make sure that you did everything correctly is to rack the charging handle, release, and does a click. It does. Now hold the trigger, rack the charging handle, release, and release the trigger. You should hear another click. And then another click. I'm good to go. So like I said, the random bursting was a huge issue that I was having. I have a mag filled with gas, green gas, and I'm not going to test this guy outside because it wouldn't be fair. It's literally below 30 degrees. There's snow on the ground. So I just want to try and test it inside and see if we have any mishaps. You have to hold that release down. I don't know what that's about. Maybe because it's cold. Did we fix the problem? Gonna have to wait till some warmer weather to test it out outside at some point. But the hammer upgrade is exactly the same as it's supposed to be. So whether you have the problem or not, that's how you install it. Hopefully I fixed it. For now, peace.